So this portion of the first floor is done and ready to go, to the point that we just need to install the planking on the ceiling and also the wood.
Meyers, who runs the massive YouTube channel Wild, Wonderful Offgrid with her husband Josh, suffered a transient ischemic attack, or mini-stroke, in late February 2024. And the way they handled it absolutely shatters the illusion of what it actually means to build a perfect off-grid life while a million people are watching you do it.
Which is honestly the wildest part of this whole story to me, because when you have over 1 million subscribers, your entire life is basically content. But they decided that a medical emergency was the one thing they weren't going to turn into a 3-part vlog series with a cliffhanger thumbnail.
Exactly. And we are going to get into all of that, because this isn't just a story about a health scare. It is a story about the absolute pressure cooker of YouTube, the reality of off-grid homesteading in the mountains of West Virginia on a 73-acre property, and what happens when the people who are literally known for having an unbelievable, relentless, borderline psychotic work ethic are physically forced by their own biology to just stop doing things.
And I think we have to establish right up front who Josh and Aaron are, because if you haven't watched Wild, Wonderful Off-Grid, you might be picturing some casual hipster couple who bought a yurt and take pictures of their organic tomatoes on weekends. That is not what is happening here. Josh was an electrician, Aaron was a teacher, and they basically decided to sell their house in the suburbs, pack up their 3 kids, and move into an RV in the woods to build an enormous A-frame house from scratch by themselves.
Right. They are out there pouring concrete, framing walls, putting together a 7.2 kilowatt solar power system, building out their own infrastructure, and doing it all while homeschooling 3 kids and running a farm full of animals. It is the kind of manual labor that would make a professional construction crew of 12 large men start crying and asking for union breaks. But Josh and Aaron are just out there doing it with 4 hands and a camera.
And they are aggressively cheerful about it. That is the part that always gets me. You watch them lifting these massive timber posts in weather that looks like the sky is actively trying to punish them for their sins. And they are just smiling and making jokes. It is deeply intimidating. I complain when I have to assemble an IKEA bookshelf that has 4 pieces. And these people are out here building a literal mountain fortress out of spite and sheer willpower.
Well, and that relentless energy is exactly why the channel blew up. People love watching competence, especially extreme competence in the face of nature. But that grind helped them hit 1.1 million subscribers. And it didn't just fund the house, they built a whole empire out of it. They have the Lore Collective shop, where they sell handmade soaps and candles. They have the Wild Roots Cafe over in Romney, West Virginia. And they have sponsors relying on them. They basically turned their survival into a multimedia corporation.
Which sounds amazing, right? Escaping the rat race, living off the land, being your own boss. Except when you really look at it, they didn't escape the rat race at all. They just moved the rat race to the woods, added bears, and put the entire thing on the internet for public consumption. They traded a boss in an office for the YouTube algorithm, which is a boss that never sleeps, never takes days off, and will actively destroy your income if you don't feed it a video of you doing manual labor every single week.
And that brings us to the core issue here, the unrelenting grind, because by early 2024, they've been running at full speed for years. They started this journey in 2018. That is 6 years of nonstop, physically punishing labor mixed with content creation. And let me tell you, homestead work is already exhausting. You have to feed the animals, fix the fences, chop the wood, deal with the weather. But when you add filming to that, it is a whole different level of psychological torture.
Oh, absolutely. Because you can't just build a wall. You have to set up a tripod, check the lighting, build the wall, realize the camera wasn't rolling, take the wall down, and build it again while pretending you were doing it for the first time. It is insane. I cannot emphasize enough how much extra work it is to document your own manual labor. It turns an 8-hour day of backbreaking work into a 12-hour day of backbreaking work plus acting.
And then you have to edit the footage. You're exhausted, your muscles are screaming, you have concrete dust in your lungs, and now you have to sit at a laptop for 6 hours cutting footage and trying to find the perfect, royalty-free banjo music to make it look rustic and fun. It is not a lifestyle. It is a pressure cooker with good lighting.
And the stakes are so high because it's not just a hobby, it's their entire livelihood. If they don't upload, the views drop. If the views drop, the AdSense revenue drops. If the revenue drops, they can't buy the materials to build the house. If they can't build the house, they don't have a video for next week. It is an endless, terrifying loop of productivity that you can never step off of.
Which makes me wonder, what happens to your brain when your survival depends on you constantly performing your own survival? Like at some point, does the line blur between we are building a house to live in and we are building a house because if we stop, the internet will forget us and our children will starve? I think the line doesn't just blur. I think it completely evaporates. You become a machine. You become a content-generating cyborg fueled by solar power and desperation. And the thing is, the audience doesn't see that. The audience just sees 20 minutes of perfectly edited progress. They see the A-frame going up. They see the solar panels getting installed. They see the cute goats. They don't see the exhaustion. They don't see the panic.
And they don't see the physical toll it takes on the body, because you cannot operate at that level of intensity forever. Biology always wins. You can outwork a lot of things. You can outwork a bad economy, you can outwork a tough location, but you cannot outwork your own central nervous system.
Which is exactly what we saw happen, because no matter how tough you are, no matter how many timber beams you can lift, your body has a limit. And when you hit that limit, your body doesn't send you a polite email asking for a vacation. It just pulls the emergency brake while you're driving 90 miles an hour down the highway.
Which brings us to late February 2024. This is the moment everything changed. Aaron suffered a transient ischemic attack, a TIA, which is commonly called a mini stroke. It happened completely off camera. There was no dramatic footage, no vlog intro, just an absolute terrifying medical emergency that sent her straight to the hospital. And for the audience, it was just silence. Uploads paused for about 2 weeks, and the fans were left completely in the dark, guessing what was going on.
And you have to imagine the panic in the comments section. Because when a channel that is known for never ever stopping suddenly goes silent for 2 weeks, people know something is seriously wrong. It wasn't like they said, hey, taking a week off for a vacation. It was a dead stop. And for a family whose entire brand is we do hard things no matter what, stopping is the scariest thing they can possibly do.
A mini stroke is a warning shot. It is your brain literally depriving itself of blood to say, hey, whatever you are doing, you need to stop right now. And thankfully, Aaron recovered. There wasn't catastrophic permanent damage, which is a massive blessing. But the psychological impact of that has to be earth-shattering. When your entire identity, your business, your house, your family's future is built on your physical ability to work, and your body suddenly betrays you, that is a level of existential dread most people can't comprehend.
Right, because it's not like she sprained an ankle. You can work through a sprained ankle, you can tape it up and limp around. A mini stroke is neurological. It is the core operating system of your body glitching out. You can't just rub dirt on it and get back to pouring concrete. And the fact that they kept it quiet for those 2 weeks is so telling about how they operate. They didn't rush to monetize the trauma. They dealt with it as a family.
Which is a massive contrast to how a lot of YouTube creators operate. If a normal vlogger gets a mild headache, it's a 3-part series with a thumbnail of them crying in the hospital waiting room. But Josh and Aaron just went silent. They protected themselves. They didn't make it a storyline until they were ready, and even when they did, they kept the specifics incredibly vague.
And that takes a lot of discipline, because you know the temptation is there. You know that a video titled, "My wife had a stroke" with a red arrow pointing to a hospital bed would get 10 million views and pay for the next phase of the build. But they refuse to do it. They prioritize their actual real-life sanity over the algorithm, which is honestly the most off-grid thing they have ever done. Rejecting the internet's demand for your trauma is the ultimate form of self-reliance.
I love that framing. Rejecting the internet's demand for your trauma is the ultimate self-reliance. It really is. They finally addressed it on March 10th, 2024. They posted a video calmly explaining that the build had paused because Erin had a mini stroke. They didn't sensationalize it. They just said, "This happened. It was serious. We are okay. And we are easing back in." But even with that calm delivery, it fundamentally changed the relationship between them and the audience.
Oh, 100%. Because suddenly you're not just watching a home improvement show anymore. You're watching a medical drama. Every time Erin lifts a hammer, you're thinking, is she pushing too hard? Every time she looks tired, you are analyzing her facial expressions. The innocence of the channel was gone. It became this high-stakes tightrope walk where the audience is collectively holding its breath.
And this leads directly into how they manage their boundaries, which I think is one of the most fascinating aspects of Wild, Wonderful Off-Grid, because they share so much of their lives. We see their house, we see their land, we see their businesses, but they draw a very hard line when it comes to medical privacy and their children. They confirmed the TIA, but they never shared the exact cause, the symptoms, or the treatment plan. They basically said, we share our build, we do not owe you our medical charts.
Which is incredibly healthy, but also deeply frustrating for an internet audience that has been conditioned to believe they are entitled to every single detail of a creator's life. We live in an era of extreme oversharing. If you don't show me your actual MRI scan on camera, people start thinking you are hiding something. But Josh and Erin have always been like this. It's not a new strategy. They have always protected their kids.
Right. They have 3 kids, and as they have grown, they are featured less and less on the channel. And eagle-eyed viewers have picked up over the years that one of their sons seems to have a medical condition, but the family has never, ever disclosed it publicly. They refuse to use their children as content fodder. They are building a house for their kids, not building a channel off their kids.
Which, again, is so rare. You look at the family vlogger space, and it is a toxic wasteland of exploitation. Parents shoving cameras in their toddlers' faces when they're crying, monetizing every milestone, turning their children into employees before they can even read. Josh and Erin are out here swinging hammers and saying, "Look at this wall we built. Don't look at our kids." It is a masterclass in setting boundaries with a million strangers.
But setting those boundaries doesn't stop the audience from speculating. When Erin came back after the mini stroke, people were constantly in the comments analyzing her. Somebody asked why she wasn't up on the roof like she used to be, and Erin gave a very blunt, rare glimpse of reality. She essentially acknowledged the stroke and implied it permanently changed what she could safely do. She couldn't be up on a high roof doing dangerous framing anymore.
And that one detail is devastating. Because for years, her whole identity on that channel was being right there next to Josh, doing the exact same dangerous, heavy labor. To have that stripped away, to have to stand on the ground and watch someone else do the work you used to do, that is a massive psychological blow. It's not just a physical limitation, it's a loss of identity.
And it forces a complete recalibration of what the future looks like. If she can't be on the roof, what else can't she do? What happens if she pushes too hard? The fear of recurrence after a TIA is huge. Every headache, every moment of dizziness, every time she gets tired, there has to be this quiet panic in the back of their minds. Is it happening again? You cannot live a relaxing off-grid life when your own body feels like a ticking time bomb.
Especially when you live in the mountains of West Virginia. It's not like they are 5 minutes from a massive trauma center. They are off-grid. If something goes wrong, it is a logistical nightmare to get help. The isolation that was supposed to be their sanctuary suddenly becomes a liability. The woods are beautiful until you need an ambulance. And then the woods are terrifying.
And that mounting pressure, the physical reality of Aaron's health, the mental strain, the algorithm, all of it finally boiled over nearly a year later. On February 18th, 2025, they posted a video that legitimately shocked the entire community. The title was simply, "We Want to Quit." And this was not clickbait. This was a flare gun fired from a sinking ship.
It really was. When Josh and Aaron say, "We want to quit," it hits different. If a beauty vlogger says, "I want to quit," it means they are tired of doing ring light tutorials. When Josh and Aaron say it, it means the structural integrity of their entire existence is collapsing. They didn't post this because it was raining and they were grumpy. They posted it because the cumulative weight of the last 7 years had finally broken their spirit.
They admitted that they had seriously considered quitting YouTube forever, walking away completely. And it wasn't just an emotional confession, it was a financial one because, like we established, consistency is the currency of YouTube. If you stop uploading, the algorithm punishes you. Your views drop, your sponsors leave, and your businesses suffer. The Wild Roots Cafe and the Lore Collective shop rely heavily on the visibility of the channel. Quitting YouTube meant potentially sabotaging their entire income stream.
It's the ultimate trap. They built this beautiful, independent life, but the foundation of that independence is entirely dependent on a tech company in California liking their upload schedule. Walking away from YouTube would be like pulling the engine out of your truck while you are halfway up a mountain. You can do it, but you are going to roll backwards very fast.
But they were so burned out that they were willing to risk it. That is how dark it got. The fear that Aaron's health could vanish in a single afternoon changed their math. Suddenly, the AdSense revenue didn't seem worth dying for. The sponsor checks didn't seem worth a stroke. They realized that they were feeding themselves to the machine to pay for a house that they might not be healthy enough to live in.
And the audience reaction was incredible, because usually when a creator says they might quit, the fans get selfish. They demand more content. They say, "You owe us." But the Wild, Wonderful Off-Grid audience did the exact opposite. The comments were universally telling them to stop. People were begging them to rest, to slow down, to take care of Aaron. It was this beautiful moment of 1 million people saying, "We like your videos, but we like you being alive more."
Which is rare on the internet. Usually the internet wants blood. But the fans realized that they were watching two people slowly destroy themselves for entertainment, and they collectively opted out. They told them, "Don't burn yourselves into the ground for us." And the craziest part, Josh and Aaron actually listened.
They listened, but I want to take a second to really obsess over the paradox of this entire situation. The whole premise of off-grid living is supposed to be escaping the pressures of modern society, right? You go out into the woods, you chop your own wood, you grow your own food, you live by the sun and the seasons. It's supposed to be Walden Pond. But somehow, we have created a culture where people go to Walden Pond, set up a Starlink dish, and get stressed out because their Walden Pond vlog isn't hitting key performance indicators.
It is the most dystopian version of nature possible. Thoreau didn't have to worry about audience retention rates when he was planting beans. He didn't have to check his analytics to see if the chapter on ants had a good click-through rate. But modern homesteaders are out there trying to find inner peace while simultaneously optimizing their thumbnails for maximum engagement. It is a fundamental contradiction.
Exactly. You cannot be off-grid if you are intrinsically tied to the world's largest digital grid to pay your mortgage. It's an illusion. You are just a remote worker with a really aggressive landscaping hobby. And I say this with love because I respect the hell out of Josh and Aaron, but the entire genre of YouTube homesteading is built on a lie. It sells the idea of simplicity, but the reality is infinitely more complicated than just having a normal job.
Right, if you have a normal job, you clock out at 5 p.m. Your boss doesn't care if you build a porch on the weekend. But when your life is the content, you can never clock out. You are always at work. Your living room is a set. Your yard is a set. Your marriage is a plot line. And when you are doing back-breaking physical labor on top of that, it is a recipe for total physical and mental collapse, which is exactly what happened to them.
It reminds me of people who monetize their hobbies and then realize they hate their hobbies. I love baking. I'm going to open a bakery. Boom! Now you hate flour and you want to fight your customers. Josh and Aaron loved building and being independent, so they made a channel. Boom! Now they're slaves to a release schedule and Aaron is in the hospital. The monetization of every aspect of human existence is going to kill us all, Noah.
It got dark, Miles. But you are not wrong. The internet takes everything beautiful and turns it into a content mill. But what makes the Meyers different is that they recognized it before it completely destroyed them. When they hit that breaking point in February 2025, they didn't just push through. They didn't double down and try to outwork the burnout. They actually stepped back and analyzed the trap they had built for themselves.
Which takes so much self-awareness, because when you're in the machine tells you that stopping means failure. The machine tells you that if you take a break, someone else is going to build a cooler A-frame house and steal your subscribers. You have to actively fight against your own economic interests to save your life. And that is a terrifying choice to make when you have 3 kids and a massive property to maintain.
So they made the choice to adapt. First, they dramatically slowed their pace. And for people like Josh and Aaron, slowing down is still probably working 50 hours a week, but they stopped acting like every week had to be a highlight reel of exhaustion. They let timelines stretch. If a porch took 3 months instead of 3 weeks, it took 3 months. They stopped chasing the artificial deadlines of the upload schedule.
But the second change was the real shocker. The absolute paradigm shift for the hardcore DIY community. In late 2025, they posted a video where they finally admitted the unthinkable. They accepted help. They brought in contractors. They got extra hands. For viewers who had watched them stubbornly lift hundreds of pounds of wood by themselves for years, this was like watching Superman ask for help opening a jar of pickles.
It was a massive ego death. The entire ethos of the channel, the entire brand was we do it ourselves. The name of the channel might as well have been we don't need anyone. So for them to look at the camera and say, we actually can't carry all of this by ourselves, we hired guys, that is a profound level of personal growth. It was them realizing that the DIY badge of honor is not worth dying for.
And you know there are those hardcore internet weirdos who probably got mad about it. The armchair homesteaders who live in a condo in Chicago typing, actually, real off-grid people don't hire contractors for drywall. Shut up, Kevin. They built a whole house by themselves. Let them hire a guy to tape the seams so Aaron doesn't have another stroke.
Exactly. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier about the illusion of homesteading. There is this toxic purity culture in the off-grid community where if you don't literally forge your own nails out of iron ore you mined from a riverbed, you are a fraud. But the Meyers basically looked at that purity culture and said, we are done. We are going to be human beings. We're going to hire help.
Which honestly makes them more relatable. I don't want to watch invincible cyborgs forever. I want to watch people who realize that drywall sucks and paying someone else to do it is the highest form of self-care. Accepting help when you are drowning is not weakness, it is survival. And for a channel built on survival, it was the smartest move they could possibly make.
And it saved the channel, because by bringing in help, the content didn't stop, it just changed. The pressure was distributed. Josh didn't have to be the sole architect, builder and foreman. Erin didn't have to push her physical limits just to have something to film. They became managers of their own build, which is what they should have been doing 2 years ago.
Right. They graduated from laborers to general contractors, which is the natural evolution of any major project. You don't see the CEO of Ford down on the assembly line tightening bolts every single day. Eventually, you have to step back and steer the ship instead of rowing it. They finally gave themselves permission to steer the ship.
But the evolution didn't stop there, because in mid-January 2026, Josh dropped another bombshell that completely recontextualized their future. He revealed that he decided to go back to his old job, at least part-time. He went back to working outside the homestead. And he didn't frame it as a failure or a defeat. He framed it as stability.
Which is wild, because the whole dream, the whole reason they moved to the woods was to escape the normal job. And now, 8 years later, he is putting the uniform back on and heading out into the world. It is a full circle moment, but not in a bad way. It's actually incredibly practical, because relying on YouTube and selling candles to fund a massive construction project and feed a family of 5 is objectively terrifying.
It is. Internet money is not real money until it's in the bank, and even then it can vanish overnight. An algorithm update, a shadow ban, a change in audience tastes, and suddenly your revenue is cut in half. Josh going back to work wasn't giving up on the dream. It was building a safety net under the dream. A normal paycheck means steady income. It potentially means health insurance, which is crucial given Erin's medical history. And it takes the pressure off the channel to be the only pillar holding their lives up.
And it fundamentally changes the dynamic of the content. If the channel isn't the only source of income, they don't have to panic if a video underperforms. They don't have to post, "We want to quit," because they can just take a month off and still pay their bills. It is them refusing to bet their family's entire future on a digital casino. They diversified their life.
And it fits perfectly into their long-term strategy. They have always been smart about this. They built the Wild Roots Cafe. They built the Lore Collective. They always knew YouTube wouldn't last forever. But going back to a W-2 job is the ultimate reality check. It proves that no matter how far off the grid you go, the grid still offers things like dental plans and predictable cash flow. And those things are really nice when you have kids.
It really highlights the absurdity of the whole escape the matrix mentality. People think they can just walk into the woods and ignore the economy, but the economy always finds you. You still have to buy lumber, you still have to pay property taxes, you still have to buy solar panels. Josh going back to work is the most honest admission that modern off-grid living is actually a luxury that requires a massive amount of capital.
Yes, you have to be rich to live like a pioneer nowadays. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to pretend it is the 1800s, and they did it the hard way, grinding themselves to dust to earn that capital through YouTube until Erin's body literally gave out. And once that happened, the illusion shattered. They realized that working a normal job for a few days a week is vastly easier than trying to outwork the algorithm.
It's like they climbed all the way to the top of the mountain of internet fame, looked around at the view, realized they were freezing and exhausted, and said, "You know what? A heated office with a water cooler sounds incredible right now, and I applaud them for it. Throw away the ego, go get that steady paycheck. Let the YouTube channel just be a fun thing again instead of a life or death struggle."
Exactly. So by early 2026, they are still building. They are moving toward major milestones like the HVAC and the drywall phase. But the philosophy has entirely changed. Progress is still important, but health comes first. They adapted, they survived, which is More than most internet stars can say when the pressure gets to them.
Wait, did we even talk about the fact that they have a massive 7.2 kilowatt solar system? I feel like we spent 20 minutes yelling about the existential dread of the YouTube algorithm and completely glossed over the fact that they are generating their own power to run this entire compound.
We touched on it briefly, but honestly, the solar panels are the least interesting part of a story where a woman has a literal brain event and keeps it secret for 2 weeks while her husband slowly realizes that the internet is a prison of their own making. I think we covered the important bases. We got the TIA, we got the near quitting, we got the contractors, we got Josh's job, we got the cafe and the soaps. It was a chaotic journey, much like building an A-frame house in the mud.
Fair enough. I just want to make sure we give them credit for actually finishing the things they start, even if it almost destroyed them in the process. They are doing what 99% of people only dream about while sitting in traffic, and they are doing it with the wisdom to finally ask for help.
Absolutely. Sometimes the strongest off-grid move isn't lifting a timber beam with pure willpower. It is knowing when to step back so you can keep going at all. Send this to someone who needs this in their life, especially if they are currently trying to DIY a bathroom renovation and crying in a Home Depot parking lot. See you next time.